Hey guys, welcome back for more Legacy of the Void casts. My name is Magnet, and today let's look at Puck versus Fear. An interesting game played here in Legacy of the Void. Puck, of course, kind enough to send over his replays, so if you want to watch him play live, check out his stream, which should be linked here in an annotation here in just a second. And once again, unfortunately I don't have a good observer interface ready to go yet, considering it is very buggy in Legacy of the Void, but we'll still make this game interesting for you guys, see what these guys want to do, and kind of see how TVP is, or PvT, depending on however you want to look at it, is shaping up right now. So, obviously we've talked a lot about resource changes, stuff like that, and how much it can impact the game, but we're kind of seeing what I've noticed a little bit early on, and that is that Terran can often go for gas first, and still get their barracks at a fairly normal time. So this is definitely going to be a gas first opener here from Fear. Likely going to be into Cyclone, considering they are very strong against Protoss. Puck, on the other hand, going just basically Nexus first. So it's the first time I've really seen these two builds clash on this stage before. And even in previous iterations of Heart of the Swarm, gas first would always lead into Factory as opposed to something like Reaper. So you don't really see this type of interaction in previous iterations of StarCraft either. So this is also a super fast second gas. So I think undeniably this has to be for a Cyclone, but we'll see if it goes into anything else. I don't think anything else would make too much sense with the second gas being this fast, so we'll figure out what these guys are doing. Puck coming into the base right now, and we can obviously see what he sees the barracks finishing up. And I'm not sure how familiar these guys are with all the timings yet. I know when I play it feels really weird as far as trying to figure out when the barracks are supposed to be finished on any given interval. But especially because the gas first doesn't really slow down your barracks that much, that can be hard to tell. So what Puck, I'm sure, did is come in here and check the geyser to see how much has been mined. So he should have an idea as far as what's going on. And I don't even know if he actually saw the factory being started. Yeah, he did. So, I mean, that's obvious, but at the same time, you could also see things like proxies coming down if you were to see how much gas had been mined and you didn't see anything else in the base. Stuff like that. Here's a reactor coming down. So this isn't going to be a Cyclone opener like we thought. Reactor is going to point more towards things like Widow Mines or Hellions, which is obviously the only thing that really makes too much sense. Puck checking for something coming across the map here, and what's coming across right now is Fear's Scout, so he's going to try and see what's going on. The add-ons are done here. He's going for Marines and Cyclone, likely, as the Tech Lab is coming down now. So I don't know why he didn't opt to switch these two, as when he starts his Cyclone, he'll have a lot of excess gas. So maybe just trying to fill out build orders, stuff like that, which is what people are definitely be doing for a long time in Legacy of the Void, considering it did just come out. So the first couple Marines coming down here, checking around, maybe for some hidden pylons, stuff like that. But back at Puck's base, obviously the Nexus first has finished up, and it remains to be seen, or rather we don't really know what's been seen so far. He did see the Nexus, so he shouldn't be getting too paranoid as far as checking around for things like proxies and whatnot, because that'd be really, really strange with a Nexus first type of opener. Here's a Stargate coming down here from Puck, so we're going to see Stargate versus Cyclone, which I think is going to regulate to be very normal in Legacy of the Void. The second Cyclone is also on the way. He still has a lot of excess gas, so if he's going back and refining this build, maybe he can take this gas a little bit later. You can see he's only mining with 2 out of 3 on the geyser right now, so just a lot of weird periods in Legacy of the Void are going to be coming out where people don't really know what's going to be possible by what time until they spend some time figuring it out. This Stalker's unfortunately going to get caught by this Cyclone really easily, so this Stalker is really dead. It's not going to do too much. So you can see how quickly the Cyclone wins those one-on-one battles, but this Marine Cyclone opener is going to be pretty strong. Not enough energy for an overcharge, and there won't be for at least a few more seconds, so I guess he's at least got this timed out decently to put this down as soon as the Terran starts to commit a little bit. The only unfortunate thing is that he doesn't have a sentry waiting at the top of the ramp, so these guys just decided to walk up after the overcharge went down. Then this could probably do a little bit more damage, but so far Puck doing pretty well, and of course, as a Terran, you really can't afford to take this gamble and just try to rush up the ramp, so maybe just getting away with a little bit, not having a sentry there, but he could definitely afford it anyway, so I guess it's reasonable to assume that it could be there, so it's probably best just to be a little bit careful. Phoenix is coming out now, and for those of you guys that watched one of my games before against the Terran, I actually wondered if this Phoenix opener was going to be valid against Cyclone openers, because you could just lift them up and they can't do anything. So I think Puck is also on the same line of thinking, trying to see if that'll be a viable option as well. This attack's getting pretty large outside the Terran base, and it's going to be a weird micro battle between the Phoenixes lifting the Cyclones, here's even an SCB to repair, and the Marines trying to target down the lifted Cyclone, or rather the Phoenix that's doing the lifting. all kinds of strange interactions here so far. Phoenix start to poke up here, or rather the Cyclones start to poke up here a little bit more. The lifts go off and they're instantly canceled. So this is getting a little messy as Puck has to pull his probes right now against these Cyclones, doing so much damage. Look how fast they kill these Phoenix. So these type of attacks are going to start to be really, really annoying in TVP, or rather PvT, excuse me, saying it the wrong way around. But Puck's still doing okay, he hasn't lost too much, and of course he can't afford to lose some workers right now, considering he did go for that Nexus first. So I guess this could be kind of a trade-off where the Terran has to kill X number of workers because he just doesn't have the same type of mining that Puck has been having for a little while. So Stalker's trying to come up here, target down the weakened Cyclones. Yeah, you can snap that one right now. Now this is getting a little bit more even. Once these Cyclones are up to about 4 or 5, and once the Protoss has more gateway units, they start to really lose their effectiveness. So you can't just go crazy with them the entire game. So Puck has defended that and puts himself in a pretty reasonable position. You can see 42 workers to 30, so the Nexus first. The Phoenix is doing okay there. They didn't really shut down the attack too hard. It was mostly Stalker micro and having to pull probes and whatnot. But at the very least, what these Phoenix could do, which may have been his intention, is that if the Cyclones lock onto something and that gets broken, it starts a cooldown here where they can't regain that lock on, and their range when they're not locked on is actually fairly short. So that may have been the whole idea with that. So if you just lift them once, it'll mess them up, and then they'll have to try and retarget, lose a bunch of range and other things. So pretty interesting, and I should have been paying a little bit more attention to that, but I've frankly just never really seen these battles yet. So that may have been the idea, but I guess it kind of remains to be seen. But still, Puck holding it off one way or the other, and now able to do a little bit of counter damage with these Phoenix. Needs to be careful though. These Cyclones will kill these Phoenix really fast if they're able to get a lock on. So Puck just kind of trying to stay out of the zoning area for these. And I wonder if staying back here is far enough. Yeah, probably not. So he just heads over to the other side. See if he can get... Look how fast these Cyclones are still. Like, these are Phoenix that are flying away, and Phoenix is one of the fastest units in the game, and the Cyclones can still kind of chase him down and deal a lot of damage to him. So Puck behind this, going Robo Bay, and he's going to be for Disruptors more than likely. Oracle on the way as well, probably for Stasis Mines, which he has talked about a lot, and we watched another game with him using those a lot in an Archon mode game. Also taking a third base here, so getting a reasonable economy advantage as the Terran is just now landing their third base as well. Income still shows Puck quite in the lead, 15 worker lead right now. And it's interesting to see how the Terran's going to transition off this, because they've been incrementing out Cyclones one at a time. But as far as I've been able to tell, the Cyclones don't really scale that well. Once you get beyond about 6, they start to not be that good. Or at least I've seen so far. But it may be issues of people don't really know how to control them yet, stuff like that. Phoenixes came back in here for a little bit more damage, but there are turrets up now, so their effectiveness will continue to dwindle. And of course you don't want to keep overcommitting too hard to these Phoenix, because there's only a finite number of Cyclones, and making up to like 6 and 7 probably wouldn't make too much sense, because you still have big Marine armies and stuff to stop. The big thing that's really behind right now, though, is the stim is super late. So if Puck actually knew how far behind the stim was, he could take a lot of liberties and be really greedy. Because Terran, with this many Marines, really can't afford to start getting on the map unless they have stim, combat shields, and medevacs. And he has basically none of those right now. Armory on the way as well, so this is starting to get weird. Could very easily be for +2/+2, so I guess I shouldn't read into that too much. Probably not going to be seeing anything weird like Thors or Hellbats mixed in, but I guess it always is a possibility. Oracle is just setting up these stasis field traps once again. You can see these are on autocast, so we'll have to pay a little bit of attention to those. Looks like the front one isn't, so we're going to see a lot more interesting decision making being made with these stasis wards here in the future. I keep wanting to call them stasis mines, but that's too similar to Widow mines, so I have to start programming my brain to say wards. But I think what's going to happen with these is you're probably going to set some of these on the side to catch drops, and they're probably going to be on autocast, and considering there's not much you can mess up if you're just trying to catch medevacs. But the ones that are straight ahead, you probably have things like observers out in front, and you can keep these off of autocast, so hopefully you can get big detonations and have plenty of vision and warning. As you can see, this is Puck's vision that he should be able to see if something is moving across the map right there. And the obvious combination with this are the disruptors. So if you can just stasis a big army and then land a giant disruptor hit, then you get really great trades, all for the expense of some sentry energy and some time on your disruptors, which is almost free. So you can get some pretty absurd trades here, kind of the same way you can get good trades with Baneling landmines. So you have to wonder if Terran will start just scanning around the map like they do against Zerg, or bringing a Raven or something. So that will kind of remain to be seen, but still some interesting little changes that you can see in Legacy of the Void already kind of starting to come up. Templar Archives on the way, still putting out disruptors one at a time. Let's take a look at the Terran unit composition right now. It is about 8 disruptors, or not disruptors, cyclones, excuse me. A lot of Marines here. The Marines still don't have combat shields, so he definitely needs to make sure he gets on that, which he is researching right now. So you can see how really late all this is. It's a 4th base coming down, and the Terran still doesn't really have any overly decent avenues of aggression right now, but we'll have to see how that all works out. The Marines coming forward, and this is why you definitely want to keep these things off of autocast. And you can see, even when I had this highlighted, Puck had the presence of mind to turn this off, because if the Marine comes forward, he can actually trip this mine, or rather this ward, and waste it. So if you notice there subtly, Puck actually did right-click that, turn off the autocasting so the Marine wouldn't set it off. And that'll be something that you can start to try to punish Protoss players for doing if they have a bunch of mines on, or rather wards on autocast. I need to stop saying mines. Jeez, it's so tempting. But you'll notice all these things are off autocast, so these little random Marines moving around aren't going to trip him. He won't waste his energy. He'll still be able to use that. May also lure the Terran into a little bit of a false sense of security where they think, you know, I walked a Marine around here, nothing detonated. May still be a lot of people that don't realize that these can be turned on to manual casting, so they may think that if nothing got tripped when they send a unit out there, then there obviously must be nothing there. But we're seeing a little bit more normal stuff for PvT starting to be included. As the Storm is coming up, the Colossus also coming up, which will give him a little bit more long-term damage and kind of being able to hold a big blobby fight. But it looks like some scans are coming forward. The Disruptor comes forward. This is so bad. Oh my god, this Disruptor. Disruptor just wasted everything. And that's why you need to be able to lift into your medevacs if this starts happening. Even another one going to waste a whole bunch more Marines. So this is why these units exist, is to break up these big blobby bio armies. So you can see just the bloodstains here. I would say a decent, maybe like 30 Marines or so around that just died from those 2 disruptors. And Terran really didn't get anything done with either of those. So pretty insane hits right now. Puck, realizing that he has a decent advantage, is going to bait the army over into this stasis ward. He's not going to be able to get this planetary down though, so you still do need to be careful. And that's the big thing, is you still do need a lot of splash damage. A massive disruptor, or excuse me, stasis ward hit, disabling all these cyclones. And Puck needs to be a little bit careful here because this planetary still is pretty strong. These units are going to come off of stasis here in just a second. The Cyclones being there is a really big benefit to Puck because he has a lot of time to fight while these can't do anything. 2 disruptors on top of this army just waste all the Cyclones, so those disruptors and mines are very unforgiving right now, and Terrans and Zergs are all going to have to be very careful when going against that. Still though, the supplies are pretty even, so not like Puck is really running away with this game right now. Terran is now smartly starting to scan forward a little bit despite getting hit by another ward. And you can see that if you do scan, it will reveal the wards, and you can just go ahead and target them down. So, despite all the huge connections from these disruptors so far, the game's still relatively even, which is kind of funny because Protoss, if they spend this much gas on these disruptors, whatever's left over doesn't really have a lot of gas remaining to get a lot of splash damage out, which is why Puck is starting to mix up his army just a little bit with these Colossus, these High Templars starting to be out with Storm and stuff. If you just get bad disruptor hits and you waste their cooldown, then the Terran has wide open avenues to chase you down and really punish you quite hard for not having the right mix of units after that. So it seems like these things are really broken, but if you're relying on them this much, then you need just insane hits and then some to still be in good shape because, like I said, still an even game. And we haven't had anything too crazy. Like worker counts, they've both kind of traded fairly evenly, but nothing too crazy after that opener. You can see Puck, selecting this every once in a while, and he might walk right over it, and he did not quite get it. He does get the back half of the army, so still this isn't going to be too bad of a trade for him. Templar storming all over this army, and now you can just kind of hang out and wait for this stasis to wear off. The Terran still has to micro against this, of course, but there are more disruptors that can kind of zone this out. As long as you can separate this side of the army that's been stasis, then they'll be really easy to kill. So yeah, sending 2 of these forward, or at least having them ready to blow up. Unfortunately misses the timing just a little bit, so he could have actually blown up most of this army, but the disruptor timing was just barely off. The Terran's starting to stomp through all these stasis wards now, and this is starting to look a little bit scary. You can't rely on Colossus too much because their damage did get reduced by quite a bit. Disruptor starting to filter through this army, blow up a decent chunk here, but this is still a really even fight, and Terran actually has a pretty big supply lead right now. So doing pretty well, a lot more charge zealots coming in. The upgrades are relatively even between these two. Protoss actually had a slight advantage, so able to push this back for the time being. but you have to really emphasize that these Colossus don't nearly do what they used to. So they can help out as far as being a mix-in, but they're no longer the backbone of Protoss's army in these engagements. It's a lot more evenly distributed between the gateway units and the splash units, but still, really cool game coming down here so far from these guys. Really cool to see all these new units getting mixed in. Unfortunately, the Cyclones in these larger battles don't seem like they've really done much, but that's mostly because most of them got blown up all at once over here. So we're going to have to wait and see as far as how it's going to go. And like I said, if you're Terran, you're probably going to have to just start scanning forward everywhere you go. And I guess that's good for Protoss because you're making them burn economical energy, just clearing out the parts of the map that you control. But a little bit of an interesting dynamic here. So you can see him actually putting the stasis wards down in the middle of the fight, hoping that Terran will walk into it. Oh my god, actually got a huge hit right there. Almost like 2/3 of the Terran's army is disabled right now. But Puck, again, you still have to consider that with all this going on, you still don't have a lot of backbone. You still have to roll these disruptors up and get pretty crazy hits just to keep this game even. So disruptors, needs to time this out well. He does just roll it right in there, and he should time it out properly. Yep, there we go. He does sack the disruptor, unfortunately, but still, getting a good hit with those is what they need to do. That'll make it kind of okay for them dying afterward. If you have the presence of mind to maybe get a warp prism in there, you could grab them out of there since they do have pretty long range on the warp prisms, but again, that's very difficult to try and do in the middle of a battle. So, really cool interactions here so far. A lot of stasis wards hanging out. Terran's still doing really well though, and we can't overemphasize it. Even though these are big disruptor hits, Terran's still able to split and control their way out of these things. The Cyclones seem like they're doing okay in these engagements every once in a while. They can, lock onto the Protoss front lines, maybe eliminate a whole bunch of Zealots before the Terrans are forced to fight. But it's hard to tell what they're doing in these fights right now, and I guess it'll just be a matter of time before these things start to average out and you can get a better idea of how everything is interacting together. So more scans coming forward here. You can now see the stasis wards easily lock it on with one Cyclone, kills it in looks like just 3 hits, so pretty good for them. There are a decent amount of Templar back here, so gonna probably have to start relying on Templar a little bit more as these fights go on. This is a really huge arc here from Terran. Puck needs to be careful, probably activate his disruptors. You can see him have to mix it together, the Templar and the disruptor energy. There's the new Time Warp, by the way, which we haven't quite seen yet in any of our games. The Time Warp actually takes a little while to kick in, but you can see the radius is huge once it finally does kick in. So Mothership Core is a little bit more interesting in the sense of being a zoning tool. It's not so immediate, and it's a little bit stronger if you're able to plan these out properly. So you can see it already did wear off, so it's not the old days where it used to last forever. So you can see Terran starting to move across the map here. What I'd almost like to see is a little bit of tactics that people like Life use, where they try to distract the enemy player. And by the way, this could be a big Widow Mine, or not a Widow Mine hit, a Stasis Ward hit. This is going to be enormous if he can set this off. The entire army is all balled up right here. Puck, you need to set off the ward. Okay, there we go. Really nicely done. Literally more than half the army here, and a max Terran army is stasis. So if he has 2 disruptors that he can roll in here, or maybe just storm them when they all come out, it'll be pretty big. The Terran actually picked off a disruptor here, so that was a big deal. Kind of changing this battle a lot, but the disruptor starts to roll in. He actually activated a little bit too early. Second one coming in now, should get a big hit on this, and yeah, it does do pretty well. The good thing with these Cyclones, though, is that they tend to target down these disruptors. So you could see he makes him pay for actually expending those disruptors on the army. Still a pretty big fight here. Cyclone's actually doing really well, and it seems like Cyclone mixed into bio armies is actually going to be quite a thing because they're really efficient with their range, able to really force Protosses into bad situations. Another okay disruptor hit, trying to plant a couple of stasis wards behind the army are these Oracles. Not the greatest hit there as well. Protoss starts to engage, but look how orange and red the Terran army is right now, so these Zealots are going to do a lot of work. Tripping another mine was the Terran army, and that could be a cool little thing that we could see is trying to prevent the retreats from Terran. But now Puck has a pretty big advantage in this game after winning that fight, and mostly it came down to the fact that the Terran just stuck around for a little bit too long when they were on too low of hit points. So kind of a crazy game here so far, but hopefully you guys are definitely enjoying what's going on here. These Marauders get a get out of jail free card, and they trip and fall right into another jail. So that's unfortunate for them, but it looks like they still should be able to escape as Puck's army is on the other side of the map. 2 disruptors at a time now, so double Robo Disruptor is what the production is for Puck. I don't know where his second Robo is. It's got to be around here somewhere. But yeah, he's making these things 2 at a time, trying to get the best hits possible. But I really like this Cyclone plus Bio army. It's really cool how the Cyclones can be locked onto the important things, and it's mostly Disruptors that I've seen them killing so far. Terran, again, having to drop a lot of scans just to be sure they don't walk into big mine hits. Disruptor says, alright, I've had enough of this, tries to chase him down. Terran just runs away, so the Protoss also just runs away. Not too big of a consequence for either side there, only the Disruptor cooldown being the biggest factor. Terran, I guess, also did waste a lot of Medivac energy by having to stim here. And here's a big time warp going off. Disruptor's rolling in as well, Zealot's buffering a lot of the damage. Disruptor's getting to the back of the army, and this is where it can start to get problematic, as those Disruptors really just wasted everything, and Fear just says GG and well played. That was a really cool game. Really making use of a lot of cool tools, and showing us how PvT is going to look in the very near future. So it looks like the composition was Cyclone plus Bio with these slightly nerfed Marauders versus Oracle Stasis, Disruptors, mixed in Colossus a little bit. These Colossus obviously still do have a lot of kills, but that's because they're mostly alive for the entire game. Their attacks have gone down fairly substantially, but it's nice to see a little bit better army balance between the damage distribution, such as Zealots and Stalkers getting a decent amount of the damage put out instead of just the Colossus basically doing everything. So really cool game there, guys. I hope you enjoyed that. Subscribe to my channel if you want to see more of that stuff in the future, and big thanks to Puck for sending me these replays. You guys can check out his stream at twitch.tv/Puck, and that's Puck with 2 Ks. So check it out there, and let me know if you have any questions or any comments on the game that you saw or anything with Legacy of the Void Beta. I'll do my best to answer it, maybe make some videos if you guys have specific things you want to see. So yeah, check it out. Thanks for watching. I'll talk to you guys later.